Got me all worked up with that fusion you were playing before.
Welcome. This is my my Tonight Show late night show set, Christmas set. You know how the late night shows would always have their Christmas set? They always had like their poinsettias in the back. Like,
I see. Yeah.
you know, like
Very
when you watch
good.
Saturday Night Live or the Letterman show or the Carson show or any of that stuff, they always had their holiday set, you know.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is I can't put these headphones on, so I might just go ahead and put on my regular hat
Yeah.
until the jam comes back, you know. But
Oh, hey, he can't hear us right now.
so talk amongst yourselves first.
I can hear you.
I
Hey.
was saying we could talk about Travis right now because he can't hear
Oh, I
anything.
see.
So
yeah.
anyway. Oh,
That's better.
Back already.
I was playing for tonight's jam, tonight's special holiday jam. I was playing the Ernie Ball Music Man Steve Morse model. Now this is a special gift. I believe this was given to me by Glenn Hintzman, right? At some point.
mhm.
And so Glenn's probably here. I haven't checked the comments yet. Oh, there he is. Hi, Glenn. Yeah. So I was playing your guitar, Glenn. I think I forgot to plug it in. I think that was the problem. You couldn't hear it very well. There's a plug right there, and I couldn't find a jack that would fit. But I did use a really giant pick. You know, if you play guitar this big, this pick looks really, really, really large. Anyway.
Sorry, I'm not very responsive. I've been engineering things for somebody to record some student things, and I dismantled my rig. So during sound check, Jennifer and Travis were waiting for me to like become functional, and now I'm still trying to repatch things.
All right, okay, Ray Hayden is here. Hi, Ray. Ray says size doesn't matter. Let me continue my holiday presentation, but first, let me just introduce for those that have not joined us before. This is the 37th episode of Outside the Inn. We are the Travis Larson Band, and we have spent most of 2020, well, 37 weeks, actually 38 weeks, because one of those was a live stream performance that I did a few weeks ago for Can't Stop the Blues. But aside from that, we've been getting together every week and hanging out because we're not playing on Saturday nights, so we might as well at least try and annoy each other like we would if we were playing on Saturday nights.
Right.
So, and tonight's show specific subject line will be, so last week we did the Shift album. We've been going consecutively through our catalog, and last week we talked about Shift. So this week, of course, we were going to move on to Shift Happens, which is the live DVD and album from that. And we realized that we hadn't talked about any of the other DVDs. So I think we're going to kind of do an overview of all three of our DVDs, live records that have come out over the years tonight. So that's the plan. But before we do that, Ray mentioned size doesn't matter. I wanted to give a shout out. I was going to show you my giant sausage.
Whoa.
Because my friend drummer Dave Miranda sent me this giant sausage for Christmas. And sometimes size does matter.
Wow.
So I'm going to say size does matter when you're talking about your giant sausage. I think Dave used to play with these back in the day, right?
What?
As drumsticks, you mean?
Yeah.
No, beating people to death with.
that was the side gig, right?
Yeah, right.
living on Long Island near the city. Sometimes you make a little extra money. You know what I mean? Sometimes the music thing doesn't pay so well. But anyway,
sometimes. Only some of the times.
Yeah.
Something tells me that if you were working for the Musicians Union out in New York City 30 years ago, maybe it paid okay. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Ay. Yes, this show did just get PG-13.
Anthony said it's turning into a sausage fest.
Nice.
Well, it's not Christmas if there's not some sort of sausage involved. You know.
I do know.
It's like I'm over here talking about my giant sausage.
I'm the one that brought it up. I realize if I'm on this close-up shot, you can't see my set. So
yeah, I don't like that close-up shot anyways.
Get my set in here. I just don't want to knock it over. Jennifer for Christmas, Jennifer got me this beautiful poinsettia plant. And my reaction was what, Dale? It was, is that real? And then it
And
was,
what
you
do
have
I
to
do
water
with
it?
it?
I know we had a conversation about whether or not you pronounce the I in poinsettia, or is it a poinsettia?
Oh,
Yeah. What is the final determination on that?
I don't know.
Hmm. Okay. If anyone out there knows the proper pronunciation of the pea flower, let us know.
Glenn, yes, I am a big wiener, Glenn. I'm always a wiener.
Oh my God.
That's
Okay.
what America's all about right now, is being wieners, right? Big wieners. Anthony, sorry, this is too fun. Anthony, I guess if I had a giant sausage, I'd show it off too. Goober is here. Did the sausage come with batteries? Well, I think it was a battering item at one point. Seriously, though, this thing, it's like the heaviest. This thing really could be a baseball bat. I mean, it's.
How many pounds is that, Travis? The
Oh, I
3
don't
pounds?
know. Let me see. Is it going to tell me that in actual print that I can read?
Sure.
Can
Oh,
you
that
read
you can
that?
read. Right. Never mind. You
It's
can
right.
read, probably
It's right
not.
there. Can you see it?
Move it down some. Nope.
No, you're not going to be able to read that. It's big. That's all you need to know. It says, yeah, I don't know what it says.
Okay, well, no matter.
You know,
It says serving size something. I imagine it's more than 2.
Dave gave me something wonderful too, but it wasn't a sausage.
Oh, I don't want to hear about it then.
I know. If it's not a sausage, then what are we talking about?
The way you're describing it makes me feel funny. Dave gave me something wonderful too, but it wasn't a sausage. Okay.
Okay, next.
Hey, you guys got anything before we get started on these DVDs? Because it's going to be an 8-hour show tonight.
I have a joke.
I already have to pee.
What does Santa clean his sleigh with?
I don't know.
Santitizer.
Santitize.
Santitize is a relevant Christmas joke. How about that?
Yeah. Wait,
I hope you're
everybody,
cleaning that thing.
everybody remember to use their sanitizer this Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else, Dale?
I'm still trying to. Yeah, I don't have an iPad with me. I can barely follow comments. I'm still trying to patch things. So,
Hey, is that a magazine next to you? What do you got there?
I'm mirrored for some reason. You talking about this way?
Yeah.
This is actually. I'm kind of happy about this. I saw that Mike Clark has a new drum instructional book out. Mike Clark, the the Headhunters, the guy on Chameleon and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But he's a killer, like a jazz player. They call him the Tony Williams of funk. They do. That's a true thing.
So interesting because I've heard Jen try and play Chameleon many times on this drum kit over here behind me.
Yeah.
And so maybe you should loan her that book.
Yeah.
She can figure out that beat. Did you get that, Jen?
What?
Time functioning patterns. That's a hip title, right?
Did you say Mike Clark is his name?
Yeah.
Mike Clark.
Oh, the guy who plays on Chameleon.
Yes.
Yeah. I see he's got a book there. Maybe that would tell you how to actually do the proper beat.
I know how to do the proper beat. I would had to go grab my show and tell really quick. The Christmas present Travis gave me.
Oh.
Oh, sweet. That's the vinyl, huh?
Yes.
That was the first concert that I saw. A big show. It was a Rush concert on the Power Windows tour.
And Dale hates this picture.
Oh,
It's only because I had a white tour shirt with that. That was what was on it. It just wasn't a cool rock and roll shirt. It's a cool picture. It's just not a good tour shirt.
Yeah, I would concur.
If you were going to compare Dale's body and my body at that age, though, when my album came out, I'm much more accurate. So he shouldn't feel so bad about that picture. That's my body right now.
Okay.
Okay,
Right?
now we all know. Very good.
This is me standing in my window lonely at night.
You know, I'm not sure why you thought that was going to make me feel better about that picture.
What's that?
I'm not sure why you thought that was going to make me feel better about that picture, but it doesn't.
Well, because Dale looked like Fabio at that age.
Okay. We also sent out the TLB Christmas card today via the interwebs.
Yes, and I had it on the intro tonight.
Oh yeah, you did.
Yeah, this right here.
Nice. Very good.
It sounds great.
Yeah, he's still
good sounding Christmas card.
Hey, who knew the moose could blow? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So I'm going to give a quick backstory on the moose for those people that haven't been so on top of Travis Larson Band, unlike James Tejada.
I'm going to I hate to say this, but I'm going to this early in the show excuse myself and use the restroom. You talk about the moose.
Really? What do you, Jen, after a gig?
I've been nonstop since 2. I have not come up for air. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, you guys.
So Jen has this moose pillow pet that goes on the road with us for the last, I don't know, how many years, Jen?
I don't know. It's been a long time.
Like a decade, right?
Yeah, something like that.
So the moose pillow pet has become the
mascot.
Mascot. Thank you. I've got the COVID brain. The mascot of TLB on the road pretty much, because the moose sits on the dashboard and kind of oversees everything when we're traveling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we get to the hotel, the moose becomes a pillow, or whenever you need to sack out in the van. But when we're just heading where we need to go, the moose is front and center, standing tall on the dashboard, leading the way. So that's where the moose came from. And then the moose has a helmet on this year. I noticed it's like a vintage motorcycle helmet,
right?
And that, of course, is because
the moose is riding a motorcycle. He needs to wear a helmet for safety. You know.
Because on the next tour, Jen's going to start riding her motorcycle like Neil Peart, and she's going to stick the moose
right in my little backpack. I'll be like, hey.
Yeah, Jen's been riding motorcycles, so
I did as of last week, and we talked about this, but I did go get my rider's permit just a few days ago. So technically legal-ish for now.
Jen passed test number 1.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know if it's like this in every state, but in California, you can ride. The only limitation of taking the written test versus the riding test is that you can not ride with a passenger or after dark.
Or, yeah, I think that is it. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Because I was looking.
That wasn't one of the questions on the test, or I would have gotten it wrong, evidently. Or I think there's something else.
Right.
Anyways.
So yeah, I was looking into this early in the year before we knew we were all going to be sitting at home. There was a time after the Aristocrats tour where I was thinking, yeah, maybe it'd be fun to all get motorcycles.
Right.
And then Jen got a motorcycle and I did not.
It's Kip's old motorcycle. I think we talked about that. So it's not like it was just one of those weird things where Kip's like, hey, I'm selling this motorcycle.
Right.
I was like, oh.
I was supposed to call Kip back earlier today, by the way. I'm out of eggs and Kip has a chicken. So you can't have a giant sausage without some eggs occasionally. So
right.
There's Gail getting ready. Should we not watch him yet?
No, let's watch it.
He's got a wire back in. Okay. This is what it looks like when Dale wires in the stage and all the lights would normally be off. But now you can see what it looks like with the lights on.
It is like that, huh?
It's kind of like that.
Dale's all stressed out. It's 3 seconds they hit, and he's plugging in wires.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
All right, sorry guys.
No, that's all right.
I'm a disaster. It's not all right. I'm a disaster.
Oh, yeah, but we don't have any, there's no pressure responsibilities going on. Oh, and I was going to mention too, I don't know if I should bring the room down. Well, no, let's talk about DVDs. Remind me at the end. Well, I don't know. Let me just say it because I'll forget. We're only going to do a couple more of these regularly scheduled outside the ends, being that we're almost at the end of the year. And the plan is that we will check in occasionally while we're working on the album, and we will still occasionally do the live stream performances. But hope this doesn't bum too many people out, but we are going to take a break on the every single Saturday, not until after the 2nd of January. So we're gonna still have like our New Year's get together, because the Friday falls just a couple days after, a day or two after, something like that. Anyway,
Friday comes before Saturday.
I think New Year's Day is on a Friday, right?
Right.
Sounds right.
Yeah, so we'll actually have our New Year's episode the Saturday after New Year's Day, but that'll be the last outside the end for a while Jen and I dig into this album and start trying to arrange things, and then we can start giving Dale ideas so he can start racking his brain and sending us back his ideas, and we can start sending him our ideas, and everybody can concentrate on that, because usually when we dig into really working on that stuff, we don't distract very well, and you kind of have to put everything else off your plate, because if we don't, it's just going to get forgotten anyway.
Mm-hmm. And first comment I see when I got back is, I'm out of eggs and Kip has a chicken. What the hell were you guys talking about? Anyway, don't go back to it.
So anyway, that's what's going to happen. So just so everybody knows, we've got a few more of these outside the ends on a regular schedule every Saturday at 7, and then we're going to kind of go off the grid for a while, and just keep an eye out for the occasional things after that, but they'll be sporadic, because like I say, it'll be like 7:45 on a Saturday, and we'll be in the studio working on something, and we'll forget that we were supposed to be doing this. And so we need to just focus on that for a while. And the bright side is, the more we focus on that, the sooner we'll actually have new music in an album. So right. That's the plan. And Dale's still spending a lot of his weekdays doing remote teaching and stuff. So evenings are valuable. So this week, let's talk about DVDs. I know we're going to talk about the Shift Happens Mexicali DVD, which is the next thing in the series. But before we do that, I thought maybe we'd spend a little time on the first two DVDs, starting with the November 30th, 2001 Rock Show, which was our very first DVD. And here, let's see if I can get a good shot of this.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So, Rock Show, this was shot at the original Slow Brewing Company.
Oh, hi.
How's it going, Jen?
Sorry. This was shot at the original San Luis Obispo Brewing Company. And although I'm not going to show a whole clip from it, because the audio and video quality on the YouTube clip that I have queued up is marginal, but the DVD itself looks great for it's not a HD. It's back before they had that. It's a regular 4:3 television tube formatted.
Do you remember at that show, that was back when DVD players were still such a big deal that we gave a DVD player away at that show, like the big raffle thing, like a DVD player. Now you could get those for like $20 at the liquor store or the Rite Aid down the street or whatever. Anyways, that was back when DVDs were brand new, and yeah,
exactly. And that was also, or I'm going to try and turn this down to a reasonable level because we can kind of talk over it while it's rolling. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yep.
So this was shot at the original Slow Brew Company, which was the club that Kip Stork was working at when we met him. And this was also the first week that Jennifer and I had Ernie Ball Music Man instruments, I think.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So
We
this-
just gotten them.
Yeah, we just gotten them in. The lighting rig that you see in this DVD was actually our lighting truss. We actually brought in our own lights and our own hazer machines and all that stuff. And these are all local camera guys that worked for Cable Access at the time and some other local things. Also, I was going to mention, I want to make sure that everyone can hear me, so I don't want to, if this is not working, I'm going to pull this out. Just
No, you sound great.
Yeah.
It's working? Okay.
Yeah, it's working.
So I remember when we got there, just so everyone understands, and we've talked about this a little before, this is a board mix that Kip did.
Two
so
tracks.
This is to 2 tracks, yeah. So this is the actual board mix from the club, and we actually set up mics, crowd mics, and we basically mixed the show mix like we were mixing the album mix, and we checked it 3 or 4 times with headphones on. Like he would record a little bit and we would go listen and we would tweak something. And so this is 100% real live mix to 2-track with no fixes, no mixing capabilities later. So if you think about it like that, this is 100% honest interpretation of that show that night, including the mix that the audience heard through the PA in the club. And that's Kip doing a live analog board mix.
Yep.
If anybody had flubbed any song bad enough to kill it, then there's nothing to do about it. That's not going to get to the show.
And I remember we did play one song a second time. Do you guys remember what it was?
Yeah.
No.
What was it?
It was Nut Boy.
Nut Boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The opening song, something was weird about it, so we did it at the very end. And we encored with it. It's almost like you had a hit, Open with it, do it as an encore.
Right? Yeah, it's like Dick Dale playing Miserlou.
And I remember something about this show, if I'm thinking of the right thing. One of you was sick, and Jen was sick going into the show, and Travis literally became sick during the show. That seems right?
I think I was sick, I was sick at soundcheck and load in.
Okay. So I remember we did Nut Boy again. I remember a conversation at the end of the night where we had some conversation where you thought it was like twice as fast at the end of the night. Like I was so amped at the end, but they were remarkably similar, but you were just dead.
Right. I was just checking out some comments here. Greg Tommins pointed out Carvin amps. So Jen was the first person to get a real endorsement deal in this band, and she was in Bass Player magazine in the spotlight as the up and coming bass player of, I don't even remember what year, 1996. Jen, what was it?
1902, I think, is what it was.
Was it 96?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Something like that.
It was something like that, yeah. So there you go. That's a completely live. We basically had a bunch of digital cameras, kind of like the way we've done the rest of the DVDs, and we took those later on and synced them to the audio. But the audio, there wasn't even anything to do to the audio after that. I mean, on all our subsequent DVDs, we've recorded things properly where we multi-tracked them and we could actually mix an album later out of those tracks. And maybe if there was a little flub, you could, clean it up. But on that show, that's as raw as it gets. And I watched a little bit of it the other day, just knowing we were going to talk about this. And as much as you can look at it and cringe going, boy, we were kids and we were still learning how to do this, you can also kind of look at it and go, for what that was, and the fact that we were only a band for a little while at that point. It's pretty happening considering that's exactly what the live show was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was nothing. We didn't even have any real technology. Oh, so I started talking about carvins. I got sidetracked. I'm sorry. So Jen got a deal because she was in Bass Player Magazine in the spotlight with Carvin. At the time, Carvin got in touch with her and offered her, a deal. And so then she ended up with a couple of Carvin stacks, and then I ended up with a couple of Carvin stacks, and then I've got a Carvin semi-acoustic guitar steel string that I still have, that I still use sometimes when we do the duets. And but that's the gear that we had on there. And then we literally got our deal a couple months before that with Ernie Ball and Music Man, and we had just got those instruments, I think, like that week. We had ordered, we had wanted Ernie Ball and Music Man instruments, and it took a while because what happens, when you're an artist and you're dealing with those companies is, there's still a waiting list of things. It's not, it's not like they just throw whatever you want at you. They, it's like they're manufacturing things. And if you want a certain instrument, they still have to put it in the assembly line. It's like you're not going to go to Ford Motor Company and say, make me one of these when the whole line is a certain car.
Yeah.
So,
and they're always going to put the paying customer as priorities anyways. So.
Right. which is fine, of course.
Yes,
but,
yes, sure.
But so we got those instruments, I think, like the Monday before that gig, and that gig was, like a Friday or Saturday or something, probably.
That was your 30th birthday too.
Well, you didn't have to say that.
Well, it was.
What year was it?
I had gotten my that set of drums too. I wasn't endorsing DW, but I had been using an entry-level set of drums for a long time, and I said I got a new set. Thought it'd be in plenty of time, but one item was holding up the order, and I finally called them a week before that show and said, "Any chance this is going to get here by the show?" And it was just that there was a snare drum that wasn't matching the set. And so I got up at 6 a.m. Did I mention how much I hate mornings? I think I did. I got up at 6 a.m. because I had to work that day at like 1 in the afternoon, and drove 3 hours to DW to pick it up, and just threw it in my truck and brought it back. So that was the new instrument for me too, even though it wasn't an endorser situation, but all of us were just playing unfamiliar instruments.
And I think I'm trying to remember. So we had the lighting truss for that show, and we sold that eventually. But it was literally a one rack space switcher that had like a flash switch and an on and off switch for each light, and that was it. And I can't remember if it was Devin or my brother that ran the lights on that show. But
I think it was your brother. How is it that Slow Brew didn't have proper lights?
They only had a couple of cans, but they didn't have like full, like a lighting array.
Because that was a new venue. That was the downstairs venue, and that was still new.
It's just after they opened it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which doesn't even exist anymore for those of you wondering to check it out. Also, on this DVD, it's fun to check out, which is 1 million years old, is the commentary.
Oh, brother. Have you listened to that?
Not in a long time.
Me neither.
But the commentary was recorded in like back in the 90s. We had a one-room apartment on, behind the local supermarket, like where you put all the nice apartments.
Right.
So that commentary was done sitting on the futon, which is back at my parents' house these days, and we
got a lot of feedback about that commentary. I knew people who were friends of the band who just would leave that commentary on because they enjoyed it.
Right.
Right. That was the night we also did that big Rush medley with Bytor and the Snow Dog, and
no, it was actually the release party for it.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. So the release party for this DVD, because we didn't have any new material, we thought we should do something special. Was we played Bytor and the Snowman into
The
By
snowman?
sorry, by Tor and the Snow Dog. Sorry, it's Christmas. It's the holiday version, yeah. By Tor and the Snowman. By Tor and the Snow Dog into Cygnus X1, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we did every single Rush ending.
Yeah.
Like of every Rush, you know, that da na no na na no na no da da ga da 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 like everything.
Yep.
So there was somewhere a mini disc of that, and I tried to play it recently, and it wouldn't play. And I don't know if it's the mini disc or the player, because I don't know what the longevity of mini discs are. But I think that is lost forever, unfortunately.
I had a drum cam of that too, and that I went to look at, and it was on tape. We just had Joe Travers talking about baking tape so it doesn't fall apart, and I didn't get into it in time. And
Right.
I threw a stick way high up in the air like Neil Peart and caught it. I'm like, I'm going to retire 1-for-1 on the stick toss. God damn it. But,
we could probably get the mini disc recoverable somehow.
In honor of Getty, because this was right after we had met those guys on their when they came back after the 5 years. When we did that at that show, I wore the one and only cutoff shirt that I've ever worn at a gig in this band.
Yeah.
Because really showing off the guns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Getty was wearing a cutoff shirt on that tour. So I was like, okay, I'll wear a cutoff shirt and we'll do By Tor and the Snow Dog. And here's the thing about that too. This is just a side note. I won't get too off track, but I spent a month in riding back and forth. Like I would drive out to the beach here to ride my bike, and I would drive back and forth every day practicing singing. Originally, we were going to do was it Lime? No, it was Free Will.
Oh yeah.
So I sang Free Will for a month, and we went into rehearsals, and I could hit everything in Free Will. And you guys said, I think we should just do By Tor and the Snow Dog. It's a cooler song. I'm like, first of all, I'm barely able to sing Free Will. Barely. Right. And you're going to make me do By Tor and the Snow Dog now? So then all of a sudden, it's like the Foo Fighters doing By Tor and the Snow Dog. I'm just screaming my ass off and not hitting any of the high notes. And so I very quickly became Dave Grohl doing By Tor and the Snow Dog.
I remember that. That was actually a cool take on it, though. You made good choices on the
sure.
vocals.
That's sure I did. I'll give you your money later. Okay, so that's Rock Show. Rock Show was down and dirty, shot at Slow Brewing Company. No fix-its. It has probably an entertaining commentary. We should listen to that again sometime soon.
Yeah, we totally should. We
should do a commentary on the commentary for like the 20th anniversary next year, because you guys realize that a year from now is the 20-year anniversary of that DVD.
That's crazy.
So
yeah.
So the next one in the line, which we didn't talk about after Rate of Change, is the DVD and live album that we had out, which is still available digitally. Rate of Change Live. So this is what that looked like, or looks like. You can still get these. In fact, we have a whole repress of these. So go nuts. You won't get it in time for Christmas, probably. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But you could put you could print up a thing and put it in the card and say you got it for somebody. That's what Jen usually does with my Christmas presents.
Well, I had to this time. What can I say?
So
the mail system's all jacked up right now.
So this also not a full HD widescreen DVD. However, a much bigger venue, a beautiful theater. We had a full backdrop projection screen. We had, I forget how many cameras, like a lot of cameras.
9.
Was it 9? And that was actually shot at the Clark Center for the Performing Arts? Is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. In Arroyo Grande, California, the Clark Center for the Performing Arts was like this $1 million, like one of those performing arts theaters with multi-levels and a huge stage. It's like a 40-foot stage, beautiful lights, The guy's name escapes me now, but the guy that did the lights on us did a fantastic job on that show, considering that, what was his name?
Barry.
Really? You remember that?
That's what pops into my mind.
Wow. Okay. So that was a completely next level DVD, and we recorded it. Kip brought out the multi-track machines. We recorded everything so we could actually mix it later and put thought into it. I remember that whole show. The reason we were able to get that venue, because those venues are very expensive. It costs a couple of grand to get a venue like that. Is we did a charity concert for the local school music program, and we had enough money to take care of expenses, and we gave the rest to the school music programs. And then we were doing clinics for this music program all that week. So all the music classes in the local high school down there. I don't remember if Jen went with me for the clinics, maybe some of them. I remember doing some by myself. And then I remember we performed for the kids at lunchtime on a Friday before this show.
Yeah.
So
that was the next level philanthropic accomplishment for an indie fusion band to raise the money, to use the theater and donate to the local schools. I mean, that's insane.
Right. Yeah. And we donated thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a couple $100. It was like, it was a good sized check, like you could buy a car with what we gave them. So,
jalopy.
And to be able to pull that off on that level and then actually come away with a product too, like that was, the reason, it's not at this point, it might come off like I'm bragging and saying we did this, but the real thing is that we're such a tiny little band that the fact that we pulled that off at that time, which that's like 12, 13 years ago now, something like that. Right. Mm-hmm. So to be able to pull that off, fill the house and pull off the filming of the show and make everything come off successfully and give money to a music program. I mean, that was like such a huge endeavor and crazy that it was successful. And this is 2 discs. So what the other disc, we put a making of, which while I'm talking about that, I'll run this clip, which is, I don't need sound for this. I'll just run. This is the trailer that we had, but you'll be able to kind of see. Well, I suppose I could run audio on it. Let's see here. So this is.
There's some sweet After Effects there.
Yeah, that's Jen's production. Let me do that so you can see this. So, so these are all clips from this show that we did, and there's a lot of this on YouTube as well. But this is a really, actually a big package. It's got the second DVD I mentioned has a documentary on it. Well, there you go. 2 hours of live concert performance.
Oh, well, there's what it has.
Right. But you can check out the lights and stuff. This was a fantastic looking show. It came off so well, for our little band that plays clubs 99% of the time to pull off a big production like this and get it on film was a really big deal. And we had, this is the next level of the gear. We mentioned that we were using Carvin on the first one, where we had upgraded to bigger rigs. Jen had at this time, before she was using Mark Bass, which she uses now, which you can actually lift. She was using Ampegs, which she had those double 810s, which are both the size of refrigerators. And people don't realize we loaded all that stuff pretty much ourselves. We would have maybe Gino with us or 1 or 2 people, but it wasn't like, we weren't Dream Theater. You know what I mean?
I want to talk a little bit about that. And I can sort of brag more than you can, because I'm really not part of the nuts and bolts production. Travis and Jennifer make this stuff happen, and it's insane. Like, it's not like we had a whole crew that rolled in with 30, people setting up lights and then other people. This is us and a couple people that we paid and some friends and volunteers. And it's just insane that I look at these shows. I was just looking at this right now going, how did that happen? We're on stage doing sound checks, and I'm always going like, hey, I'd like to do this or that. And you're like, yeah, but we got to talk to the camera guys. We're done. We got to go. Nobody's eating. And so it's incredible to me. All of these shows that are just done entirely by the band. It's not a huge operation. So
right.
Even down to the backdrop, we put Travis and I sitting at a computer timing the whole show out to the backdrop. And oh my gosh. Yeah. Whoa, what's that?
This is footage from the second DVD. So the second DVD, this is back to the main show, but the second DVD I was going to mention has a special features of behind the scenes, but it also has us at Musicians Institute in 1998.
Oh, wow.
And so that was a VHS original transfer, and that never saw the light of day. We pressed a couple of those up and we rented them in the video store that Jen and I were managing back in the 90s.
Right.
And then that never saw the light of day. So if you ever want to see us at Musicians Institute, which was this very early TLB, it's on this Rate of Change live DVD package. So you'll see us. All right, let me shut this down. You'll see us playing Musicians Institute before. I mean, this was barely a band at that point. I mean, it was, but we weren't doing we were still. At that point, I think we had just started to rent that room on 9th Street that we were rehearsing in.
Where we had to go to the Mexican restaurant to use the bathroom.
Yes. Yeah. So we rented a room, which was an office room in a building. And we had to go there after hours when nobody else was in there. And so we were literally set up in an office, and we would take like a mattress and stuff it into the door that went to the outside so that the neighbors couldn't hear the band.
It was funnier than that. Like, I know you're trying to keep it short, but we bought a door, and we nailed
I forgot we bought a door.
We bought a door.
We put a second door up and then a pad, right?
And a pad, and then did what do you call it? Weather stripping around it. And we would shove it into the frame of the door to keep the neighbors from complaining. And it was an airtight room. So we would play 2 or 3 songs until it's like, Apollo 13, where the carbon dioxide level was too high. And on my drum hardware, on the chrome, it would have condensate heated up. And it's just our breath. And then we would and then it was hard to get the door off. We installed handles to pull it off. But I always remember going if we get stuck in here, we're all going to suffocate.
And we didn't have, that was back in the day, you didn't have cell phones and stuff. I mean, maybe one of us had a cell phone. I don't know.
We actually could have gotten stuck.
Yes, we could have totally gotten stuck and suffocated in there. And yeah, anytime you needed to use the bathroom, it was this huge, you had to pull the thing out.
You were pulling 2 doors out. Like, you had to pull the door out of the thing to open the other door. You also, before that, had to pull the bed off. Like, we had a bed mattress, and then a door, and then open the door that was actually attached to the building. So it was like a 3-layer.
Yeah.
Okay, use the bathroom. Get back in.
Yeah, right.
So this is a comment about that show, but it's funny. It's funny how unsophisticated I am anyway about lighting. Like, it's never a consideration. And then when we do a big show like that Clark Center, I just remember, if I was a normal person who was used to those kinds of venues, I would just said there was a pin spot. Whenever I see that footage, I see myself looking down and averting my eyes, and I can look everywhere but forward, because there was just a super focused pin spot in my face. And I get every once in a while, I'll get a comment going, dude, your eyes are always closed. You're never looking forward. But I couldn't look forward, and I couldn't see you, Jen. I was blinded by this thing. And if I closed my eyes, it was still red through my eyelids. And then there's a few points in the show where we interact and I'm laughing and you're laughing. And it's because I was staring right at you, but it was inky blackness. And then suddenly I saw you and I'd be like, whoa. But it's such a funny thing how amateur I was. Just I'm sure that was just on from some play they did. Nobody probably tried to burn my retinas out. They probably just was there. and nobody knew about it, and nobody tried to do it, and then I just never said, "Can you dim that thing or something?"
Right.
Well, it looks good on camera, though.
Looks everything on that shot, that whole video looks fantastic. You know, I wish that we had HD capabilities back then, because that show was so well executed, you know.
Well, that was right at the beginning of when HD was coming. I mean, I remember we struggled with that choice because it was at the time when no one was really sure if this HD thing was even going to take off.
Yeah, not everybody did not have flat screens yet.
Oh, no. Nobody did. It was still 3.4. Nobody had the new, whatever it is, 16.9 or whatever it is now. And it was like, well, do you really think that whole flat screen thing is going to take off? We went back and forth about that. We weren't sure. And because it was so new. And at least in our worlds, maybe it wasn't keeping up with the,
I remember you guys did a lot of research, and that was what was going on. It wasn't just that you were out of touch or something.
Stephanie said, when the smaller people pass out, you need to go get help. It's the responsibility of the big people.
You're the canary in the coal mine, or you're the canary in the rehearsal space.
Right. Yeah. So without saying any specific names, because I saw Gino mentioned that was a nice handoff, and he was thinking that was to him. I'm not sure if it was. I don't remember if Gino was there, but I remember this, Gino, and here's why I tell this story. And I'm not going to say a specific name, but I will say Bill was
there.
What's that?
Gino was there.
Yeah, he was there.
Okay, but I'm not, maybe I handed it off to him, because here's how the story went. If I ended up handing it off to you, Gino, here's how it went. So there was a cooler full of beer back in the dressing room for like people that were hanging out, family, you guys maybe after the show. And so I had a tech there, and I had Bill there, and we've talked about Bill. Bill's our super fan who used to help load for us and roadie for us, who has a TLB tattoo over his heart. Bill looks like the sidekick in Braveheart. Yeah, like the big monstrous guy with the red beard.
Redhead guy.
That's Bill. So Bill's off to the side of the stage, and he's just kind of there in case anybody needs anything, watching. You know, we're filming, everything's crazy. And this other friend of ours is teching, and this was a different life of his. So I'm not going to say his name and throw him under the bus, but it's a funny story. He wouldn't mind me telling it, but he might mind me saying his name. So this whole cooler of beer was consumed by this person. And he was teching for me. And so as the guitars kept coming out for different songs, Bill started becoming more concerned, and he would run up and whisper in my ear, you better check the tuning on that, man. I don't know how the tuning's going to be on that. And I would check the tuning, and, you know, maybe it was a little out. And then Bill would come out next time with more concern. He'd be like, I wouldn't even play that guitar until you tune it. And it just kept getting more and more stressful for Bill. And so I think at some point that's where, you know, Gino probably ended up like being the guy that I was handing guitars to.
Yeah. And
the other guy just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Like he was never seen again. Like he disappeared from the show in the middle. But these are this is about as rock and roll as TLB gets. And it wasn't us, but it was somebody working with us who was having a good time.
What's funny too is you mentioned, you know, there's a cooler beer, and maybe, you know, Jen and I might drink after we're done. And but what's funny about these shows, like we were saying, it's not all us, because I don't want to diminish the people who were helping, but it's us packing up our gear, you know, with help. And so when we're done, like, we would meet and greet the crowd a little bit, but we got to get the stuff out of there. Like the venue they need us out at a certain time. You're holding people up. It's like you're the performers, but you're in a hurry to get out of people's hair.
Right. Yeah, that's the difference between having like a Dream Theater size road crew and pretty much being your own road crew.
Yep.
It's like you're trying to be as nice as you can, and you want to hang out with people, but then you also, you know, the manager is looking at his watch.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, you guys got to get out. I got to close the doors and go home and go to bed. So
building.
right. Oh, and on the special features of this DVD, there's some great footage of all the fans that came from the meet and greet you're talking about, and there's some lifers on there that are still with us. Like Larry Dickey is an example of a guy that we see on this feed a lot. He's actually on this video, I remember. And I think our friend Jerry is on there. There's some guys on there that are, you know, kind of like California or West Coast fans that we see and that are actually part of it. It's kind of fun to check out special features and see those guys that many years ago when, you know, you still see them all the time. So, and there was a double CD of this as well. So Jen had to do double artwork for the whole thing. So this is a big double fold out. It's a great package. It's got on the inside, there's a full live shot of the stage and everything. And then she also had to do a double CD packaging that kind of emulated the DVD packaging, which that's actually out of print now. It's on digital. You might be able to find a used one on eBay or something, but
I remember stuff too. Like when we say Jen does the graphic arts, it's like trying to do that stuff on a level with the people you're trying to emulate, you know, the Steve Vais and the Rushes of the world, but with no budget. So Jen would just, like, ingenuity wise, go research things, find fonts to download, and every once in a while, like there was lines in the screen during the credits, and you're trying to crack this code that everybody else just puts up with. You're like, but somebody knows how to fix this, and you and I would talk about mathematical equations and stuff.
Right.
It's insane. It's insane how much. Again, I'll throw it to you guys, how much you guys do to overcome the lack of budget with just stubbornness and integrity.
Print design is one thing, but authoring a DVD and doing all of the video effects, After Effects, the menus and things like that, that's a whole other that's a whole other animal.
Yeah.
The part of the operation.
And so our first DVD that we did, Jen, was on like the first consumer DVD authoring software you could get.
Actually,
right?
There was no consumer authoring software back then. On Rock Show, we had the very first DVD burner. It was the Pioneer A04. That thing cost a pretty penny back then. And the software that you used was actually like shareware. And it was called Temp GNC or something. I can't even remember now. And it was all code. It was all code.
All of it.
I have a book, you know, how to author your DVD. And I had to do all the math to figure out the bits and it was awful.
Yeah, just to make it clear to people, what we're talking about is nowadays you can download an app to your phone practically and do some of this stuff. But when we started doing it, Jen was literally like figuring out how to do things that you couldn't do. Like if you didn't work at Warner Brothers, like she said, we didn't have a software to do it. So you had to figure out, you know, you could burn like a single DVD with like home footage of your Christmas family gathering or something, but you couldn't create menus and stuff for it at that time. You couldn't create animations that would start the DVD, all that stuff. And
that's not entirely true. There might have been software available like through Adobe or something, but it would be like $2,000 or $3,000, you know, and we weren't able to. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it existed, but that goes back to what Dale was saying, where we always had to find these shortcuts because we can't spend $3,000 to author one DVD, and by the time we do another one, the software will be outdated. You know, it's just it's just not feasible for us.
What I love about this too, I feel like I can talk about this stuff these days because it's different, at least on the technological spectrum, where we actually have tools. But we literally, when you look at the no copyright warning on the first DVD. On the November 30th, 2001 first DVD that we did almost 20 years ago, we literally, so we had the digital cameras that we shot the video with. You could plug those cameras into a video player and use them as recorders as well. So it was a digital recorder. And so we recorded the don't copy warning off of an Emerson, Lake and Palmer video that had the warning on it, don't copy this video. You know, it was like the thing with all the warnings of what's going to happen and what penal codes you would be prosecuted with if you copied the video. So we copied that from somebody else's video. It's hilarious, right?
Pirating the piracy warning is the most ironic, elegant thing you can think of.
Pirating the piracy warning, yes.
Because even back then, I mean, nowadays you go on the internet and you can get everything, like, you know, anything like that you would need. And back then, even somehow that stuff just wasn't available. And I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to imagine that. Or maybe that just made sense to us to do it like that somehow. Maybe it was available, but I remember looking and just not being able to find that stuff. And anyways, we ended up pirating the pirate. Piracy statement.
That list you came up with where you were trying to figure out, you're authoring this thing. So you're like, well, I want to make sure it plays on everything. And then you're trying to figure out. And at that point in time, there was it took a long time to get to this, but you realized that there was no such thing as any DVD that would play on all players that were out there. And that included the big studios. Like if there was like MGM will play, and then it was a list of players that would play on and players that wouldn't play on. So you're sitting and looking at this list going, am I trying to decide based on which DVD players I think most people have or what?
That was the interesting thing. If you authored the disc according to the Red Book, which is what we did, still some of the DVD player manufacturers did not build their machines based on the Red Book. It was insane having to research this stuff and trying to come up with, and Sony was the biggest offender of all time. And oh my gosh. But the DVD was never the problem. That's what was so weird back then. You know, you're all concerned, like, I'm not going to be able to do this. But it's not the media. It's the player.
Right.
It's not my freaking problem. It was such a weird thing trying to figure all this stuff out.
Well, and Jen and I working at a video store, that was something that we dealt with on a daily basis too, because people would come in and complain, say, this disc doesn't work. And it was their player, not the disc, because the discs were uniform and the players weren't. So to test our DVD, this is going, again, the first DVD we're talking about, Jen and I were going to every single person's house that we knew that had a DVD player.
Right.
And so we went to my parents' house. So we're in my parents' living room, putting in our DVD, of course, dealing with the parents checking out the DVD and trying to focus on what we needed to check out, you know, and we see glitches, like we see some little things that we know aren't supposed to happen. Like it would hold on a frame for like two seconds or something, like it would stick and you go, oh man, there's a problem. And these were errors that would reoccur. You could go back and they would always happen in that spot. And so we're like writing down which player is this and all that stuff and trying to figure out what players have problems. And is it a bad enough problem that we try and fix it? Do we do anything, you know? And nowadays that's not a problem because all the players have evolved. So it's the same disc that we pressed in 2001, but it plays fine now because all the players have evolved.
There was nothing we could do about it except for perhaps give a list of players that might have compatibility issues. I think we may have even done that. I don't remember now, but it was just. But at the time, you didn't know. You had to assume it was your problem with the disc because you're building this thing, and it was just so much learning and research and stuff. It was crazy, you know. So
I wanted to touch real quick too. Jen mentioned the backdrop from the Rate of Change live DVD, and that was the best filmed backdrop where it really worked 100% and did what it was supposed to do. But she talked about, so you got this thing called, like, what were those effects that called that you got, like
juice drops,
yes. Mm-hmm. Where you could create all these weird combinations of effects and things. So she got this thing, we created this backdrop, we put it on a DVD. So we took like 3 DVD players to this show, like one of them to give away,
right?
And like 2 of them to do stuff with the show itself, right? I remember we had a backup DVD player and a regular DVD player in a projection screen or in a projection room up in the theater overlooking, you know, projecting down on the backdrop behind Dale. and we had to go up there. So we had to tell somebody to push play at exactly the right time. And we had, this is not cell phones, but we had like walkie-talkies.
Talkies.
And we had to time it for the intro of the show, which was, so here's what I want to get across to people. When Jen says we sat in our place, when we put this video together in front of the computer, we sat there and we timed the show out. We timed it out. Dale didn't play to a click. So it's not like today where, like, if, this is widely known, but say a band like Death Clock they play to the background with the cartoon characters and it's all in sync and they go song to song to song. The whole show is programmed to a click track that the drummer's playing to so that the band stays synced to the video. We were just timing these videos to roughly how long are we going to take between songs to talk? How long are we going to take to change guitars and tune? All that stuff. So it was like, like when we listen to Rush talks about not using backing tracks, but using samples that they all trigger and stuff. We took that concept so far that we were syncing ourselves to our own backdrop, but not with the click track, literally like just timing wise, had a clock in front of me and I knew, okay, roughly where the marks were. I had a set list and I knew exactly how long I could talk for the monologue. Like I had 3.5 minutes for the monologue or something. And it's like, it starts to go over like, all right, I got to stop talking now. Let's play a song.
Right. It's going to turn blue during the song. It's going to be a mess.
Exactly. So, because it all had to sync out where, like, when Dale's doing his drum solo, there's those cool gears that are doing all that twisting and stuff. There's all these cool visuals that were specific to songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was semi-generic, but it was planned enough to where we didn't want a really high energy thing going on if we were playing a little quiet ballad or something, or we're doing like acoustic duet, right? So we were trying to keep it at least tight enough within 30 seconds to where it made sense the whole show. That's how crazy and stupid the whole production was.
Tom Gricegraver, asks, what did you track the audio on back then? I believe that was the Elise's XT20s back then still.
Right.
When Kip rolled big old racks.
Yeah, that's correct for that show.
So. Yeah. I'm thinking of Mexicali now. He had something different for that. Anyways, I believe it was the XT20s.
Yeah. So for that, and then we had to transfer, or no, I guess we just mixed that down like we would mix down the record. Like we didn't even transfer them.
Right.
So
it seems like we had the Elise's or the Yamaha. Maybe we were tracking the drums on the Yamaha because wasn't he off to the side with the hard disk recorder?
That you're talking about the one that we showed recently that I have?
Yeah.
We just used that, I think, as an emergency backup because it didn't have enough tracks for everything. So what we did was we sent a submix of the drums to that.
Okay, just in case.
And you and me. Yeah, just in case. But it's only an 8-track recorder, or I guess it's 16, but it doesn't have, it's like a virtual board where you have to swipe to the next screen.
Okay.
So you can't use all the inputs at the same time, I think, is the deal. But it wasn't enough. Like I think we ran 24 tracks all together for the whole show. And so the 16 wasn't enough, but it was enough to get like, if this whole thing is screwed, we'll have something that we can work with,
Right.
As long as we can adjust, say, kick and snare separately, all the toms are sub-mixed, whatever. Yeah.
That aspect of it is a through line. And it's funny for me to say this because, like I said, you guys do all the production work, but I'm the big anxiety case in the band. And it's just that whole thing where you're like, that you cash in every single thing you got in terms of favors and money and resources for one performance. And it used to just be crushing to me. Like for weeks beforehand, I would just be like, man, we've all had shows where you mess up the second song and then something gets weird in the third song and then you get in your head and it's just a bad show. Like you can't have that. You can't have it. And I've just, the rock show one we were talking about earlier too, it seems like such a small deal now, but I remember having such an anxiety attack right before that. I remember everybody was hustling to get ready and I just laid down for a second and just listened to my carotid pulse going.
Oh boy.
Hey, real quick too, I forgot to mention on the first DVD, you were using a spike MIDI trigger back then for the samples.
Yeah, Latin percussion spikes.
Yeah, and if people go back and look closely, they can see Dale's childhood phone number written on that in ink pen, so that if somebody stole that spike or it got lost, they would call him.
You know how your mom writes your name and number in your collar, your jacket? That's me still.
But you could actually, now I can say that because I know the number doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly.
But that's, yeah, if you want to know Dale's parents' number, you could go find that spike on the first DVD and freeze it and see if you can make the number out. I was going to just mention.
The answers freak out. Hang on.
I was going to mention a couple of funny comments here. This is somebody that pays. This is someone that pays attention. Anthony says, if you could get drunk on milk, Travis would be in trouble. That goes back to the guitar tech discussion we were having. Lots of good Stephanie stuff tonight. I don't even need to go back over it all, but
Stephanie's always hilarious.
Tom says he had an old classical guitar teacher of his show up at his house last year with a box full of ADAT tapes, needing to pull multi-track stems for a company. We still have all our VHS, for the ADATs, and we've thought about some stuff to remix, and I think we've just nixed the idea. Like there's old stuff that I think it would be fun to go back and maybe touch up on, but if you've got to like get these tape transfers and stuff going, maybe those things just stand in history as they are. Because even to get those machines syncing and all that, it's like,
well, we've had discussions about the philosophy behind redoing a thing that you've done already, and I mean, I dig remastering perhaps, but once you put something down, recorded it in his, certain place and time in history, it seems like that's what it is, and it should remain that way.
Yep. If you've got a crappy car stereo, suspension is going to trash it worse.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying remastering is a bad thing, but any kind of retracking of an old song, I don't know, it just seems, I don't know. Yeah. It's like changing the history books. It's not fair. You can't go back into like the, history books and go, oh, no, that didn't happen, and do it again. I don't know.
Long podcast Trav was recommending me. Devin Townsend has these things where he'll talk at length about some of his albums, and the one I jumped in with was him talking about an album that he always thought about redoing, and he had so ambitious at the beginning of it, and it started going sideways, and then he got depressed and kind of, I think he was describing sort of, mental illness too. Like it was a really, really dark time for him, and he always feels like it wasn't the album he wanted to make. And then he goes, yeah, like yesterday I was about to give this podcast and I realized that's what that album is. What am I going to make it upbeat or something? It was like, right. That's what that album is.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
my whole thing is just
art is reflective of where you are in a certain point in your reality, and it's not fair to go back and change that,
Well, that's one of the great things about DVDs, like we're talking about, or live albums, is that you get a second chance with that, because we have some modern mixes of some old songs now, and I feel the same way about Rush with some stuff, like
right.
They always do such, they'll do modern sounding versions of Rush, and it doesn't sound like the 1975 version. It sounds like the now version, but they're playing songs that you love. And so I feel like that's a second chance sometimes if you put out a live product where you can, I feel like ADD off of Shift Happens is an example of that, where the record version,
exactly,
very,
live versions are totally different, but a record is a record. And aside from maybe mastering it, making it sound a little better than maybe what you were capable of, mastering, compression, those kinds of things, tracking is tracking. And when you tracked it, that's it. It's like,
yeah.
It's like if Shakespeare went back and went into one of his sonnets, was like, hey, I don't like that line anymore, I'm going to make it like this. You can't do that. You cannot do that.
Well, I could get into a huge Star Wars discussion right now, but I'm not going to.
Oh, yeah. Okay, this is my opinion. This is my opinion.
And in our case, it's tempting to say, well, it's not as much the artistic expression. Sometimes you had limitations or technical, or you don't like the mix or something. But in our case, that is descriptive of our thing. We're always trying to outperform our resources.
Right.
Dale, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. Can you turn up a tiny little bit?
Yes, sorry.
Because I have to keep my thing low for slapback purposes.
Is this any better? Or am I mixing up?
That's better.
That's better. Yeah. Thank you.
You guys sound about equal now. Okay, so moving on to the latest and greatest DVD. So last week we talked about the album Shift. So Shift Happens. There's a huge lead up to this, but let me just show everybody this one. And this is, we talked about Jobin last week, but this is the Shift Happens DVD. And this was filmed in Mexicali, Mexico. And there's Jobin, which is very timely character for this time, right?
Yeah, right. Prescient.
So the deal with this was that we had gone down there and played with the Aristocrats in 2014 for the first time, and discovered that, we've talked about this in America before, and in no way am I disparaging the fine people that come to see us here and the people that are on this chat, but when you cross a border, for some reason, everybody gets very enthusiastic, because everybody doesn't go over that border to go play for those people. So it's a fun place to play. It's very enthusiastic to go play. Even Canada is the same way. It's like, that's a tangible difference. People say Canada is just like the States north, but the people there so enthusiastic about music. So after we did that, we decided, our next live DVD we should do here, because it will be a kind of a guaranteed great show. But then Jen and I, as you mentioned, Dale, Jen and I start looking at the logistics of things,
right?
And you start going, okay, so we need how many camera people? We need camera people in Mexico. Do we know camera people in Mexico? Do we know video production people in Mexico? Do they speak English? How will we communicate with them? Right? All this stuff. And we start figuring all that out and putting that together. And without Mexicali, Prague, and Mario, we would not have been able to do this. Like, he absolutely was a huge, huge factor in us being able to put this together and put together a great crew of people that were enthusiastic and worked really hard to help us capture this show and put it all together. But the lead up to the show is the interesting part, which is
I add on just really, really quick. I want to add on the enthusiastic part. And that's a really sophisticated, knowledgeable crowd that we play to there too. It's I didn't know what to expect. I heard what a great crowd it was, and when we first started going there, I was like, okay, maybe it's possible there not that many bands come through. But I feel like from Mario having Mexicali, Prague, and bringing so many awesome acts, you play to people who just totally get what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a.
I see Anthony making fun of himself, saying he's boring at live shows. But the thing is, Anthony, it's not just that. It's the fact that if you go over the border, music becomes music. And if they do local radio ads and press and things like that to support a show like this, they don't differentiate as much between, if you turn on the radio in Europe versus most of America, it's not so separate. You don't have a separation between like you'll hear the Backstreet Boys, and then you'll hear, bands like Rush and Dream Theater and things like that, all on the radio and on the same station of the radio, more like it was back in the 70s in America, where you just had different DJs throughout the day playing different styles. But now you don't have that on a radio station. You have a radio station that's the classic rock radio station all day long. They change DJs, but they play the same 12 songs 24 hours a day over and over and over again.
And that's been the case time in America. Even I've run into that even in different bands you would think are like real mainstream styles, and then you meet the acts in that genre, and they're like, America's different. It's 7 or 8 years behind, and you never know what's going to happen, and it's all just money. So it's just a different scene.
Yeah. So if you go to other places, they tend to throw you in the same mix. And so everybody says, oh, there's exciting music coming, we're going to go see it. It's not a matter of trying to get as much attention. We had a billboard in Mexicali, like a full-size billboard that you would see on, Ventura Boulevard in Southern California, but you won't get those. You won't get one of those in Ventura Boulevard unless you're,
not about independent art.
Yeah, if you're Joe Bonamassa maybe or somebody, but Mike Keneally is not going to have a billboard. Travis Larson Band is not going to have a billboard. You know what I mean? So it's just a different world. Not to say again that everybody that shows up here is fantastic, because there's nothing greater than being able to just get in a vehicle and drive around without limitations, which is something that we can normally do. Like in America, you can just drive anywhere you want, and there's endless places that you can go and play. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do paperwork. You don't have to figure out how to get over customs and borders and all that stuff. But anyway, so the lead up to this DVD, though, we spent a week on the road, and we were doing Guitar Center clinics, not shows, because that was like the one way we could just put together a run that got us down there at that time. At that point in history. So the issue was, of course, we're going to do this big show with our regular rigs and everything, but for 5 or 7 shows before that or whatever, like for instance, Dale's going to play, electric V drums, and Jen and I are going to be playing through little monitor wedges and we're playing in a store with fluorescent lights, and we're only playing like 4 or 5 songs a night, and we're taking questions. Yes.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
She was looking very, very restless. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Now I actually feel better about it. I thought she was like,
yeah, right.
I didn't know what was going on.
Conversation or something. Right.
So then I know Dale is like the biggest issue with this based on muscle memory and stuff, but we were going to go into this show where we're going to have all these camera people and lights and big sound, and Dale's going to play his full rock and roll. Well, we did the ADD drum solo on this one, but still things that are hard to practice if you're playing a little electronic kit at a Guitar Center in-store, right?
Right. It's this balance where it's worth it to get in front of people and work your brain out with pressure, and it's kind of for 2 of the members, you're playing your own instrument, so it's valuable to get through that. And for me, it undoes things. Like we practiced a lot leading up to it, but then for 7 gigs, like Travis is saying, I'm actually undoing that practice, just actively relearning how to play it on different drum sets, and then I'm going to set up my normal drum set and try to adjust back to it. So I kind of got fucked by it, but overall, I think the band, benefits from that. Probably.
Well, at least playing in front of people.
Yeah, right.
That's the main thing. Even if we were in a store, we're playing in front of people every night, so that muscle stays.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't fool yourself into thinking you're stressed well enough during practice to actually perform under pressure. And really, clinics are almost the best version of that, even though you'd say, well, what's the pressure in playing for 14 people? 14 people under fluorescence lights is way scarier than 6,000 people where you can only see like the first 2 rows.
Yeah, when you're playing in front of you're in broad daylight essentially, and you're there to play things that people want to figure out how you're doing it, and so you want to do it well. Clinics are all about execution and then explaining what you're doing, and so you kind of have to present the thing clearly. How'd it go? Yeah.
Delete what before I come back?
What are we looking at?
Stephanie says you should delete that before she's back.
Oh, she seemed antsy. I'm glad to know she just had to go to the bathroom instead of annoyed by the conversation.
So yeah, we did this clinic tour where we went up through Colorado and all this stuff, and then went down through New Mexico and Arizona, and then for some reason, um, the one time in Mexicali that it rains like a mother, we had like this El Nino storm the day of the DVD, right?
That's right.
You
Like
know what El Nino means?
the Nino. um, so we get down there, and just so people understand how this works. We always, every time we play Mexico, we'll play Phoenix, which is like, I don't know, it's like 5-hour drive, but it's 4 hours with the time change or something like that. So we get an hour back, and we always have to try and meet those guys by, say, 1 or 2 in the afternoon on the American side. So we get up way earlier than we should be on a tour. We always get rolling. You're going to film a DVD that night. You don't know what you're going to be walking into. So of course you're trying to look good, we drive for hours that day. We get down to Calexico. We meet up with those guys. We get to the venue. It starts dumping on us to the point where there's 3 feet of water in the parking lot. Like, flooded.
Yeah, if you're on the sidewalk, like the water got over the sidewalk to the point where your ankles are underwater on the sidewalk, and then if you step into the road, it's up to your knees. You don't know if you're going to step into.
Yeah.
So
we're going into this thing. Mark Storm was with us, who most of you guys have picked up on. Mark was he was the guy out doing the clinics with us. We were doing Electro Voice clinics in the guitar centers, and he was generous and kind enough as our friend to come into Mexico with us and help us with the production of this. We were also meeting up with Kip and Gino, who were driving separate. So Kip and Gino drove down.
Don't even remind me of those moments. Okay.
So Kip likes to,
on that trip. There's a lot that goes into going across a border.
Yeah. Kip likes to be a smartass sometimes, and so Jen's trying to get a hold of him. We're meeting up at a specific time, and we all go over the border at the same time. And the guys from Mexicali take us over, and we all need to meet there. We need to stay together. We have manifests for gear and contracts
for people.
Manifests for people.
Our border patrol, they're with big guns and such, and you have to have a lot of paperwork in order.
Yep.
Yes, Kip Stork.
And so Jen keeps texting Kip, like, where are you guys? And he keeps texting back, who is this? And she's like, are you guys almost here? And he just texts back like, what? ? And that's him knowing what he's doing. It's not
because there's room for not knowing who it is.
He didn't have his passport with him either. He didn't have. Do you remember all of that?
Yes.
He didn't have like any of his documents. Oh my God, it could have killed him. Anyway, everything went okay at the end of the day.
As we talked to him for months about this.
So I got a passport story too, but I'll save it for another time.
So Kip was stressing Jen out, is what she's saying. So we get down there and we're loading in a flood, essentially, and there's literally water. I mean, it's a good venue, but it's a big venue, and it's raining so hard. There's 2 feet of water in the parking lot, so there's water dripping onto the stage. There's leaks, in the house.
Okay, I'm super short. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Gino says water shooting out of the gutters. I saw a sewer cap launch into the air. That's what I almost started to say, but there's no point in saying it. But that's the scariest thing ever. You're walking around and you could fall into a manhole without a cover on it.
Yep.
What? Nobody's gonna find you. That's.
And text and baby like,
what?
When you see that manhole cover launch, there is a killer hole in the middle of the road waiting to eat you alive. Okay, go ahead, Trav. Sorry.
It's all fun and games.
Killer holes in the middle of the road.
It's all fun and games until you fall into a manhole and drown in Mexico.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know where he is.
Kip, and he says, who's this?
Yes. I talked when my dad was alive, I talked to him about this idea too. And he's like, yeah, he was a cable installer, right? So sometimes he'd be accessing stuff onto the street, and he was like, yeah, it happens all the time. People walk through flooded streets and fall into manholes. Like, oh my God.
Wow.
This is like, I don't even want to know this. Anyway, sorry, Trav, I totally interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's
There was
okay.
a big storm. We weren't sure the power was going to hold. Everyone wasn't sure the show was even going to happen, but we just kept setting up and moving along as we had planned.
Yep.
Remember the production meeting was with, I can't remember the number of cameras that time. I think it was 8 or 9. We might have had two or three statics and 8 or 9 people. No, it was less than that. Well, in any case, the production meeting was with all non-English speaking individuals.
Yep.
And
what Kip, I remember Mark's biggest stress, because we're filming. They had one spotlight.
Yeah.
They had one spotlight. And so if you watch the DVD, the first couple songs are kind of, we're going to go with they're dark and ominous.
right.
But the reality was that Mark was trying to figure out how to communicate with the spotlight guy so he could tell him where to be on what solos and stuff, because that guy doesn't know the music at all.
Right.
And he doesn't speak the same language. So the first couple songs were kind of a little bit dark, and then you finally see the spotlight come on, I think during Point of Balance or something like that. But it's Mark down there going, you have to put the light on. And the guy would put the light on, but he would put it on the wrong person. And then it would seem like super bright and weird and awkward because it would be dark on the guy doing something. So then Mark would be like, no, take the light off. And the guy would get confused. And then the guy just turned the light off for like a couple songs. And then Mark was like, we're going to need the light. Like he's trying to figure out how to get it across to this guy, And so I know Mark was pulling his hair out. Like this is one of Mark's, if you start talking to him about this now, he starts feeling anxious,
Yeah. He cares about us so much and about the show going well, and he can't make it happen for him just by himself. You know how great Google Translate is now? Last time we were in Mexicali, some guy came up and he was trying to yell about going over, and I was not the guy to yell to, but I was trying to help him, and I just like talking to the phone, and I was like, "Are you mad about the show going late?" Question mark. I said about it, and then I said, "You need to talk to Mario."
That's great.
But yeah,
you need to talk to Mario.
This is before all that.
That's hilarious. But those guys are fantastic, and this is my some of my favorite artwork. Just as far as that seems for that album and that time, and how proggy it was. I really dig the whole Jobin thing. I think that's a super cool thing. And so that was what we were talking about last week. So many people thought that was me, but it's actually not me. And then going back to production wise, so we recorded the whole show multi-tracked. We gave storage cards, like little mini storage cards for every camera that we made sure that all the camera people that were coming to the show had a specific kind of camera. That was part of the thing that we had worked out with Mario. So we went to Best Buy and bought a bunch of cards, took them down there, handed everybody a couple cards. At the end of the night, they all handed their cards back, and then we took that and went. And
what a huge difference from back in the day where we had to gather, VHS-C tapes or mini DV tapes from whomever. And oh my God, what a nightmare. And then transfer all of that stuff digitally. So yeah, at the end of the night, it was like, give me your card. Doot, doot, and that was it.
Yeah. So do you know, we talk about when you're doing a project, like when we're working on an album, and there's a couple of different highs that you get of the album. There's like the composition high, and then there's the finishing, the recording high. And I remember when we were back on tour after this, because we still had some gigs we were doing after that show. I don't remember what they were, but I remember we were still on the road for a few days. And so I remember Jen, after a couple of days, digging into those cards and starting to stick them into her camera to play them, to check out the footage and see if any of it was worth, or maybe it was on your computer, Jen. I don't remember. Maybe it was on your laptop.
Probably, yeah.
But I remember driving through the desert, like one of those, maybe that windy road like going up to Colorado or something like that. I can't remember where we were, but I remember driving in the middle of nowhere and you bringing that first shot up and me seeing it on your laptop while we were driving. And that was the highest I got from that whole project because I knew we were going to be okay.
Okay, right,
Like as soon as I saw the footage, I was like, okay, we have something. It's going to work. Like it was like, thank God, that this is going to be something. And Jen's a little more hesitant and tentative than I always am. She's kind of like, well, I don't know. We'll see when we see, And I'm like, no, as soon as I saw it, I knew I had enough to go forward. Because even if cameras go down, and by the way, a camera did go down. We used one of the Zoom cameras on one shot of my side of the stage. And there's more shots in the first half of the show than there are the second because that camera died. And that was one of our cameras. We brought, I think, 3 or 4 of our cameras that were stationary. And then we had a bunch of people running their cameras so that we had like, you take stagnant shots in case so that if those people completely screw up, at least you have an emergency shot to go to. So basically what I'm saying is the emergency shot went away. And after that, you were completely at the mercy of the camera guy. Now, there was a thing that I had to work really, really hard on in the editing of this, where there were some super shaky shots on a couple of the camera people. And we didn't have the software to take the shake out. So I had to do that manually, which is crazy. If you watch The Watchmen is a perfect example of it. When I do the intro of The Watchmen, it's a trippy looking shot, which kind of comes off artistic, but the guitar looks really stable and the background kind of looks weird like this, like it's moving around. And the shot of me playing that intro was so shaky from the camera guy's perspective that what I did was I found a focal point on the shot. I blew the whole shot up a little bit. I put a piece of tape on the screen when I was editing the video, and I just kept dragging that focal point on every single frame to that mark for the whole shot so that it stabilized the shot. They make software to do this that I didn't have at the time that costs a lot of money. Now you could probably get that and it's cheaper. I think your iPhone even has that now.
Frame by frame.
But frame by frame, I was like, it was a reflection on the volume pot of my guitar was a pinpoint that I could see. And so I put a little arrow with a piece of like board tape on the screen that I was editing on. And I just kept dragging that reflection to the pinpoint of that arrow that I drew.
Wow.
So, but it's a cool looking shot now. It actually looks like it was done on purpose because it's kind of trippy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of that going on in that video on some shots that were really shaky. But yeah, that was my biggest high was when I saw the footage that Jen was showing us in the van when we were driving around wherever we were going. I was just like, okay. I was like so energized at that moment. Like, okay, it worked. We survived this and we have something. We're going to be able to put something out,
Yeah.
So, and then it's the best sounding live album for sure. It's definitely because it was recorded properly. Kip worked really hard to get the levels. What, Jen?
Yeah. Yes, it is. Kip worked his ass off on that show. Everybody did. Oh my gosh. Even the load in, you were talking about the rain. I just remember the load in. Everyone was exhausted after driving, border crossing, all the tomfoolery that was going on, loading in, setting up, sound checking, getting a recording situation. By the time the show, we were supposed to record for a DVD that show. Yeah. We were spent and exhausted, and I was like, "How is this even going to happen? How is this even going to happen?"
And there was it's depressing, but there was a weird moment when you felt like, well, man, this just wasn't going to happen because of that storm. And
I totally remember that. I remember just kind of writing it off like, well,
but then you had to get back up for it because everybody showed up and you're like, oh, that was not that was a bummer when I thought it wasn't going to work, but it was like relaxing. And so now you got to get back up to the show. By the way, this isn't the United States thing, but it's a little bit of a California thing. Like if it gets a little foggy or drizzly out, nobody goes out to shows. This is a good example of these people were not going to be stopped. You're going out in a flood environment to see the show, and then Yeah.
I remember Mario saying, this is the worst storm for 100 years, 100 years. It was
Yes,
like the
exactly.
biggest storm they'd had in like forever.
You know it's bad when the locals think it's bad. You're like, well,
Yeah.
maybe it happens here. He's like, no, this is
No.
Yeah. You're like, so is this like a yearly thing? Oh, I've never seen this.
Yeah. My grandmother wrote about it in her diary.
Right. Another quick thing I'll cover before we wrap this up is there's 2 discs on the Shift Happens DVD because it's a long show, but also the special features of this is a series of videos that we did for the Sound Mind album, which were live performance videos in a soundstage with no audience. And what we did was we went down. There was a friend of ours who had built a like basically a television studio, and we were the guinea pigs. And so we thought this would be a perfect perfect time for us to take advantage of this and go shoot some videos for the Sound Mind record, which we had nothing live for yet at the time, and we needed some promo for it. So we went and played these tunes in this soundstage with these guys, and the audio. Now Gino was at that show for sure, and and they threw him in the fire. Like he knows, he didn't know anything about running a video switcher or any of that stuff. And they go, well, the songs better than we do. You should run this.
That's right. I remember that.
He was just like,
do you remember that day? That was such a long day. We ended up recording at like midnight or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
so those videos,
so exhausted.
You can, find a few of those on YouTube, and those are also the special features of the Shift Happens DVD. But, we did things like Dale's favorite Dreamcatcher, and we did a bunch of stuff off SoundMind. But the thing is that we couldn't use the audio for it because at the end of the day, that audio just didn't transfer properly. Like there was problems with it. And I didn't want to lose the video footage and waste the opportunity. So what we did was we took all the footage and synced it to the album, because we play everything for the most part that close anyway. But even the duet, even Jen and I doing Old Gus, the video for that is from that shot. And so that song, there's no click track, there's no Dale, like literally you're trying to sync up something from a live performance of an acoustic song where we have no timekeeper and no digital reference. We're just playing, the two of us, guitar and bass, and we're syncing video of a performance of that song to the album version perfectly. So people, I see comments sometimes on the audio for those videos, and the people talk about, this sounds so fantastic. It's like, well, it's the album, because those are promotional videos. They're not live, although we were actually performing live. So the performance, of course, suffers because we're not running around acting like we're having a great time because we think we're being recorded. Yeah. So we're actually trying to nail it. But
it was just a really awkward scenario where there's so much first time stuff being tried. So literally somebody would get up, you'd stand there collectively for 7 or 8 minutes, and somebody go, okay, go. And you try to get a personality and play the song. And then after you get done with the song, there's no flow. You get done with the song, and then there's 13 to 14 minutes where nothing happens, and then go. And I remember just going, okay, this is distressing enough that at some point the performance is what counts. And I just abandon any stage presence, right? I'm like, fine. Right. Even if I'm looking at chewing my lower lip and looking down, I'm going to at least play well. And it turns out all that really mattered was that we look engaging.
Right.
Damn it.
And on that front, with the idea that we have a lot of volunteer help with these sorts of things, there was a volunteer guy that brought in some lights, and for some reason, I was the guy with no light on him.
Oh yeah, that is funny. And half the group that didn't have light, and then you didn't have any light.
Like there's no light on me.
Yeah.
Like the only light that actually lights it, they had a television studio light that was like a wash, and that's right next to Jen on her side of the stage. So whatever that caught of me is where you would see a shot that would work with me. But when we did After Effects on the video, I had to lighten myself up like 50%, and it's all grainy looking,
Stephanie said Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say it's because I was over in there in the dark.
Yep. Stephanie made a comment earlier, said, seriously, the DVDs are great. I play them whenever TLB's on tour, so Dale students can see he's not just chilling on the beach in Mexico.
Chilling on the beach in Mexicali. Nope.
Yeah. The beach in Mexicali, by the way, would be next to a river because it's inland.
And like by the sewer somewhere.
But so yeah, there you go. You guys got anything more on these DVDs?
Yeah. It feels like there really is so much that stuff takes. You know, Mexicali was a big one. That was really tough. You know, I can't believe we pulled that off. And
yeah,
that's why I let these things go out of my brain, because it's like it was so difficult, you know. And at the end of the day, as long as no one gets hurt or dismembered, I think that's where we always like, okay, no one's in the hospital, no one's dismembered, everything's fine. But it is really so difficult to get through that stuff and to end up with a product afterwards. It's incredible. I'm always really proud of our tenacity and inventiveness in just trying to get through such tough situations, and appreciative of our people, Gino and Kip, Mario, everyone who's always there looking after us. But yeah, man, that was a tough day, man. My word.
This is like, you know, 6 hours worth of video that took, you know, two
keeps saying, but the burritos, right? Okay, this does need to be addressed. They have at El Bobo the carne asada. Oh my God. You remember the carne asada plates there with that rice that was like all buttery? It was just a big pile.
It was like saffron rice or something. It was like,
what's that?
It was like kind of yellowish, like saffron or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though.
God, it was absolutely insane. Yes, that was the whole reason to do that. The whole reason.
Here's the thing, though. Every time we go down there, Jen and I hold our own on the carne asada, and they, you know, God bless Mario. He always goes and gets us the carne asada. We're like, no, we want that rice, and we want the carne asada, and he's always trying to get us to have the Chinese food.
The Chinese food.
Just once, try the Chinese food. And that's a big thing in Mexicali, because the Chinese food, there's like this, we've mentioned before, but there's an old history where there's a huge Chinese population down there that has infused with the Mexican population. And so it's like this hybrid Chinese / Mexican recipe thing happening. And they say it's amazing, and we have not yet tried it.
But I was catching that. He said that first 2 trips, and we were all just going, well, maybe you're bored by Mexican food, but to us, it's the greatest. And I'd want to come here and eat Chinese food. But then finally, we all understood that, oh, there's this, like you said, there's this
there's
culture
a thing that we didn't know about.
Because of pirates in the Gulf, and where they ended up was in Mexicali. And so, Chinese food in America, I mean, it's not, it only exists in America. It's super bland. It's bean sprouts and everything. And then the idea of Chinese food with jalapenos and beans and all these Mexican staples. Now I'm fascinated, but we blew our chances. We got to go back.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be the next thing. We said that last time. We said next time we come back, that's what we're doing for dinner. Like, that's okay. We're going to go do the Chinese food.
We didn't realize it was an authentic, I don't know, like you said, it's a heritage to that area.
Right. Tommy says, can you guys,
my word.
Tommy says, can you guys do a food show on the road at some point?
Mexican,
we should.
3 times a day, I'm fine.
Well, here's the thing. Once we actually start touring again, then maybe although it's so hard, we always end up, generally speaking, we do eat well on the road for certain periods. Like I've mentioned before, Jen and I have booked tours around like sausage places in Chicago and stuff. But generally speaking, we're always in a hurry, and generally speaking, we're not always eating well. So it's not always interesting, but like we should do, if we can do some consistent updates through a whole tour, and then we'll turn them into a series that we could show all at once, so that it would be a series of food. Because when you do the web updates, like I always do those Facebook updates, and if we go to like we went to Melt in Cleveland and stuff like that, but it's one update, and then you get another 2 weeks, and then there's the next food update. But maybe we should mush them into a whole big thing, mishmash them.
Mishmash. All right. Mike wants a good Who's the Man, Travis.
Okay. Well, we're getting into the Christmas thing, right?
Yep.
I'm out.
So here's I have an extended Who's the Man. So the first Who's the Man, I'm going to say Who's the Man, Scrooged or Christmas Vacation?
I'd say Christmas Vacation.
I'd say Christmas Vacation also. Yeah. That's a tough one. That's a good one.
It's a tough one. Okay, so
it's just more of a New Year's, I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Stephanie, Santa or Satan?
New Year's kind of thing. Stephanie, I think the next whatever the hell this is called, Stephanie should be on the show. Come on now.
Okay, so everybody's saying, oh no, Gino says Scrooge. Here's the thing about Scrooged, okay? Although Christmas Vacation, very close to my family, but Scrooged, just the fact, first of all, everybody in that movie is amazing. You had David Johansen playing the cab driver. That movie is as New York as it gets. But the band on the street playing for tips says "Feed a Hungry Musician."
Yeah.
Miles Davis, David Sanborn, Paul Schaefer. I forget who was playing drums. Maybe was it? It was
Ackerman?
No, it would have been like Steve Jordan or maybe Anton Fig, somebody like that.
It's
but
works both today with my wife. Wow, impressive.
Nice. So does Tommy Quirk have an answer?
No, I don't know. I didn't.
I see a lot of vacations. I see one Scrooge from Gino. But Scrooge was really cool. Scrooge was cool. But Christmas Vacation, just, there's not even, it's just a documentary.
I should refuse. Yeah, right. I know. It's just holidays suck. It's awkward. And
this is bigger than your last house.
Should I say the blessing?
You should say the blessing.
The blessing.
Yeah, that's just.
I want you to say the blessing.
Yep.
And the rocket's red glare.
Yeah. Would you want to say grace? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. All right. So an extension on this Who's the Man, of course, and you can take this however you want. We'll open it up so it's not just Christmas related. Bill Murray or Chevy Chase?
Oh, brother. Bill Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray, partly because he seems like delightful as a person too. And then there's the Chevy Chase goes the other way. But I'm trying to think of the movies. But I still think Bill Murray. Yes.
I think that everybody in the universe just says Bill Murray, no matter whatever the Who's the Man is. Bill Murray is the man.
Yeah. You could put him against anyone, like Bill Murray, Clint Eastwood.
Oh, that's a tough one, though.
Oh.
No, I don't know. I don't know that's such opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm not sure that you can have that discussion, but Bill's got better stories, for sure. A quick Bill Murray story. We were at the Music Man booth at NAMM one year, standing around, and me and Dave LaRue were talking, and Dave's looking at me, and then he starts looking to the side of me while we're having a conversation. And it's that thing where when you're having a conversation with somebody and they are all of a sudden they're not listening to you anymore and they're looking somewhere else, and I'm still talking, and I kind of just stop and I turn around, and Bill Murray is rifling through all the free swag and grabbing armloads of t-shirts, and then he runs off.
And
I turn around to Dave. I go, holy shit! I just saw Bill Murray stealing a bunch of T-shirts. He goes, yeah, so did I.
That's great.
So, and then the other Bill Murray story was the one that's actually in the movie. If you watch the documentary on Netflix about Bill Murray's sightings, I forget the name of it, but it's all about Bill Murray's little stories where he does these little things. Was when we played at the Texas Rock Fest, and he was on the corner in that bar, tending bar for everybody, just giving all the drinks away for free.
Right.
And then he went down the street and jammed with a band that night. So while we were sitting in the trailer having ribs, Bill Murray was up the street jamming with some random kids in their house. If we had caught wind of this, imagine the hijinks that would have ensued.
The ribs were probably worth it, though.
That's true. And Bill would have said that too. He would have been, oh, the ribs.
Yeah.
Austin.
Greg Timmons, probably. So,
All right. Well, all right. What else you got, kids? Anything? I will mention Jennifer's books are still for sale. She's signing everyone. And
right.
And also
I have a joke.
Oh, Jen has a joke. Yes.
Another one. What kind of motorcycle does Santa ride?
I don't know.
A Harley Davidson.
Oh, by the way, Harley Davidson and Melanie Griffith back in the 80s, they were amazing. Okay, so I got one of the TLB hoodies.
Oh.
And I just want to tell everybody they're rocking. I'm excited about it. And so if you're interested in any of this swag, go to the in the link of this description, it'll say new, and there's a thing called the artist shop, and you can go there and get any style of the TLB logo shirts now that were out of print before, and extra ones that didn't exist before in zip up hoodie form and pullover hoodies and girls shirts and all that kind of stuff. So really, really cool. I've been wanting one of these for a long time, and especially being winter and I'm walking at night when it's like in the 40s now. So, which is ridiculous here in California. It's in the 40s at night. What's that, Jen?
Do you wear your sunglasses at night?
No, I just wear my regular glasses at night. All right, everybody. Hey, somebody just posted that for us. Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, for always coming out, and Merry Christmas and stuff. It's so good to see you all, Anthony and Eric, and oh my God, Wayne and Glenn and Goober. The usual cast of characters. Stephanie, you're hilarious.
Everybody have a great holiday. I know it's a little different this year, but try and just appreciate it for what it is. Think if you're going to be home alone, like I'm going to be, try and appreciate all those years where you were with the crazy in-laws that you didn't want to be with, or the crazy relatives, or the, there's always that kind of funky uncle like Cousin Eddie.
Yes.
So appreciate what you have. Next year will probably be very different, and let's hope it is, but appreciate this year for what it is. And we appreciate you guys, like Jen says.
Yes.
And I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you guys too.
And we will see everybody. We have a little short appearance probably on Christmas Eve. Maybe we'll poke our heads in, but we will see you guys next Saturday as well, the day after Christmas. We can all talk about what we did or what we didn't do and what we got. And then next week is Annika. We'll be on to the latest TLB album. And we'll get into all those hijinks and talk about all that business. So
all right.
That's what's happening.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I got to put my hat on. Can't hear anything. I got to play the guitar.